Hello everyone, welcome back to Powerful Nothing and Magic the Gathering Cube podcast. I'm your host Dan, and as always, I'm joined by James. James, how are you doing this week?
Yeah, I'm doing well. We've got a very exciting guest lined up this week.
We do. Today, we are going to be talking to Josh from Cubeclash. For those unaware, they have been putting on the largest cube events in the UK.
Yeah, so Josh is a stalwart of the UK cube scene at this point. He's organised, or been a huge part in organising the first two Cubeclash events, which have been massive successes, and really been the first events to sort of centralised events for Cube in the UK, which has been really, really good to see. And they're expanding quite quickly. The third one is coming up. It's getting way bigger, so it's a really exciting time for it.
Oh yeah, definitely. This should be a really good conversation. And hopefully this should be something that everyone can get a little bit of something out of. If you've built a cube, then you know that just building it is only one part of it. You actually need to be able to draft it. And one thing I know that Josh is great at is bringing people together. So hopefully we can kind of talk to him about that a little bit as well. But I think with all that, let's get Josh in here. All right, marvellous. So on the line, we have Josh from Cubeclash. Josh, welcome to Powerful Nothing.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here.
Marvellous. But yeah, let's kick things off. Josh, what got you into Cube? Like, what were your first experiences?
My first cube experience was building my own cube, which I don't think that's normally the way you get into cubing, but it's about 11 years ago. So I've been playing Magic about 15 years. I was trying to remember how I learnt about Cube, but probably would have been the MTGO Vintage Holiday Cube. So I've always liked sort of game design and deck building, and I think I just got a load of cards together and built a very bad cube in Birmnignham, which is where I'm from. So I had a play group there and essentially forced them to play cube with me. And the first iteration was pretty bad. If anything, like nobody really did anything before turn 3, just because I like the big splashy stuff, and I'd like to think the cubes have got a bit better since then, but it was I can't quite remember, but it's been a labour of love for over a decade at this point.
No, awesome. Would you say it's like the tinkering that kind of really appeals to you about Cube, and kind of like all the possibilities that can come from a larger toolbox, basically?
Yeah, without doing too much psychoanalysis, I always enjoyed making my own rules to the board games we played as a kid. So I think there was something around having designing the world within which we were playing. And I organised my playgroup in Birmingham, and obviously I'm here today talking to you because I'm still organising things. So I think there was something about that, creating a play experience and I don't know, maybe thinking I could do it pretty well, but I don't know. I'm lots of cube designers are very careful and considerate, and their cubes are very well nurtured, and everything lines up very well. Mine are a bit more ad hoc and a bit sort of, I'm going to say, vibe based, and I think I like to set the vibe.
No, I'm here for a vibe based cube format. I do think a cube is very much a reflection of the person who built it and also the people who play it. Has your main cube been the same cube throughout, or has it been rebuilt? How would you kind of like describe your cube journey, I guess, with your specific cube and with your play group as well?
Sure, yeah. So the cube is technically still the same cube, and it's only had one change of sleeves in 10 years, which is pretty. Although the change are now they're much worse. I was trying to remember how many of the cards are still from the original cube, and there are still some survivors, but really not many. And I think the play group, I had my play group back in Birmingham, and we played at my house every Tuesday. We went between modern and booster draft and cube, sort of kept it fresh. Had a bit of a mini league going, pizzas and all that, and it was the stay of the social calendar every week. So that group is still active in Birmingham, but they're not cubing as much anymore. So it was definitely my influence. And then 3 years back, I moved here to London and sort of started. Well, I needed friends, I needed people to cube with, so I started building a group, and that group has sort of now turn into why I'm here today, into Cube Clash.
It's an interesting point. I think socially, there's definitely a correlation between people who build cubes and people who like to be the host.
Yeah. I wonder what that is.
Because it does kind of, it makes you be like, actually organize the event, right? I think it's a good thing.
I think the curse of any cube builder is having anyone to play your cube.
Yeah.
I think that kind of brings us nicely onto the first Cube Clash, and like what you've kind of described so far is a real kind of like grassroots route in order to like you've run multiple cube groups, you've been involved in running those kind of things, and like was it kind of a natural transition to try and run a larger scale cube event where you're kind of bringing different play groups together, as it were?
Yeah, I think so. So like I said, sort of moved to London 3.5 years back, and needed friends and needed people to play Magic with. So I literally sort of stalked Magic shops and other venues where nerds such as yourselves congregate, and just aggressively approached people with a smile and said, "Hey, have you cubed? Do you want a cube? Cube, I'm cube," and then basically kept forcing people to play cube. At a bar up in Stoke Newington, and yeah, from that, my friends now in London are primarily from that initial group. The way it sort of developed from that was I didn't actually stop telling people to come and play cube. So we had our play group, as I'm sure many of you listening do have your play group, but then just kept getting more and more people, and I think actually what sort of transitioned it from just a group of friends into something more was that as more people joined, the sort of dynamics changed a little bit, and we got a bit of a competitive edge. And I'm sort of a little shameful that I didn't manage, when it's the cube owners' competitive edge that's also coming through, it's not a good look. So I learned many lessons in that, but the dynamic definitely changed. Some new people came in who, they were a bit more of a spike than the others. So that's one of my big lessons is setting the tone and setting expectations. But anyway, it definitely changed and grew, and then splintered a little bit at that point. So I think this sort of new dynamic, the bit of competitiveness that was there, made me want to put on, something a bit more, back to what you were saying, James, about having people come in, hosting the event. So, okay, well, this would be cool if we get more people to come and host and see how this plays out on like a semi-competitive level, even though I'm a big advocate of fun first cube events. And then I think another big aspect is I'm doing a PhD, and I needed to procrastinate in a way that was at least mildly productive.
No, I can feel that as someone who's married to someone who's in the final 6 months of their PhD.
It's the crunch time.
It is the crunch time. There's an 80,000 word essay looming. Yeah, kind of like there's a nice point in terms of what you mentioned about kind of like in theory, Cube Clash, from your own anyway, was kind of aimed at a kind of a more competitive scene, because like there was definitely some competitive players at the first Cube Clash, but that's not what I kind of got out of it. For me, it was more about trying a bunch of cool cubes for the first time, and that's what I really got out of it. That's more my vibe. Is I am more of I cube to have fun. The winning is kind of is nice, but it's not the key thing. But like I do feel that kind of one of the best things about the Cube Clash is that it does cater to those different types of people.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and this fun first is really we're grassroots. We're it's sort of unaffiliated from Wizards in a way. There's proxies, there's all this sort of thing, and it is if I mean, we'll get on to talking about some of the cubes later. They're not cubes that you can spike, really. They're cubes to enjoy. So it's very much how we've changed it. We've obviously sort of kept a top 8 structure and some minimal prizes, but it's very much about being there. And enjoying the... I mean, that's the love of it, isn't it? It's all the wacky, crazy things that can only happen in Cube. They just cannot... No other format can support them. And then finding all the intricacies, and that's where the tinkering comes in, I suppose. Yeah.
Like with the first Cube Clash, were you surprised how quickly it all sold out? I saw it in our Discord, and then it was like, get it now, otherwise you're not coming. Are you surprised how quickly the event kind of sold out and such?
I was pleased. I was very pleased. Yeah, so it wasn't huge. It was I think 32 players, right? So, that's once you've got sort of 3-4 play groups turning up in most of their numbers, that's you're pretty much done, really. But I can't remember being surprised. I think I was a bit nervous putting something on. Obviously, there is, the stakes were fairly low, but there is always the financial element as well, and so it was great to see. And it was just obvious that people want to come and play Cube and they want an event, and that event actually didn't have that many of my own group there. Everyone was busy, so that was cool to see other people and meet yourselves and meet other people who the London Magic scene is quite a strange place, I think, just by the nature of the city and the spaces we have to play, and people have got busy lives and people are transient. So there's definitely, London is a great city for this to happen in, as is Birmingham, my beautiful Birmingham. But yeah, I was very pleased.
Yeah, I think it's a very nice event, get all the London cubers together, because I think it is a form of Magic that a lot of people play, right, and a lot of people really enjoy, but there has never really been much of a centralized competition or like structure, or even like many big events until like relatively recently, right? When obviously CubeCon in America and now we've got your fine events kicking off here. But it's very good to be like actually meet other people outside of your immediate friend group who are into it, because it's very easy to do that with most other forms of Magic. And I think with Cube it tends, because it is almost all like very grassroots, right? You're just cubing with people you hang out with anyway, and it's really cool to like meet other play groups like that, I think.
Yeah, I've been through Discord. I've been in touch with people in the States who are running events, and there's been some very kind people who have offered a lot of advice. But then also a gentleman in Germany and somebody in the Netherlands. So they're also popping up in these other countries, and give it a year or 2 years, and we'll have more of an international presence. Hopefully, that'll be a pretty cool way to go.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be awesome. And that's the thing. I know you said that the first one was only 32 people, but that was still the largest Cube event ever in London, which is kind of wild considering the size of the place.
Yeah.
And yeah, one of the nicest things for me about the first Cube Clash was seeing all these play groups come together. Like, there was definitely faces I've seen at like a Dark Sphere or an Action event before, but this was kind of bringing everyone together under the guise of Cube, and that was really nice to see. Specifically on kind of the first event, like from a logistical point of view, kind of like, was there anything that kind of like surprised you from a organizing point of view? Because you mentioned it was the venue. Like, was that at the venue you normally were cubing at? Was that kind of like an easy way to start the first one?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's loading bar up in St Newton. Yeah, and yeah, that's where we used to play. We've actually sort of moved now just because of the group has changed and locations are different. But they were great at the bar in terms of, had a good relationship with them, and I went to them and said, hey, like, I would like to do this, and we figured out a way that it would work for them as well. And they were decent facilitating. The space is good. The reason it's 32 is because that's really like the space that we had. Couldn't really fit any more tables in. But it was definitely logistics. Yeah, I think there's an element because it is very, I'm going to say fun first once again, and also grassroots, and people aren't turning up to win prizes or anything like this. So I definitely felt a sense of sort of freedom in terms of not making it the most slick and professional event in the world. But I did learn some things. So I didn't use any tournament software, which that changed in Cube Clash 2, and we're still using the Hedron archive. Is it the archive or the Hedron network? One of them's a magic card and one of them's great software.
Yeah, it's in my notes. It's the Hedron network. It's by the team behind Cube Cobra. I love everything they do. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, and the guy behind that is Gwen over in the States, and he's lovely to work with, and he's very sort of considerate and provides great support. But that's been a game changer. So there was software. I would recommend it as a cost attached, but it's a very reasonable cost. And timings, just, it's always going to go wrong. whatever you think for timings, people are going to take their time on the turns or this or that. Or it was just amazing how, like, watching the seconds and the minutes bleed away, and I'm not quite sure where they went. And then there are some other things, like I made some unnecessary complications, like as part of the venue rent. It's sort of essentially to guarantee an upfront expenditure. We did a drinks voucher system and stuff like that, which was fine and it worked on that scale, but it was not necessarily, just made it a bit more difficult. And then there are other things as well, which because it was such a small event and it was grassroots, and basically, I mean, I didn't know you guys, but we definitely had mutual friends, and it was all word of mouth, so I could skip out on some of the, like the ticketing platforms. All that was very casual. So all of that, whilst worked at that scale, I have now changed and professionalised a bit. And then I suppose just one more is we had a judge, and I sort of at the end of it was like, we don't need a judge. It's not competitive. There's a bunch. Cubers know their magic, right? And they can figure it out. So sort of sacked off the judges.
Yeah, I think with Cube, you're overwhelmingly going to get really experienced Magic players who aren't trying to angle shoot, So I imagine most, like 99% of the time, there's just not going to be a need, right?
No, definitely, 100%. Like, you can definitely see the improvements between 1 and 2, and some of those we'll get onto in a moment. But I still thought 1 was a really well-run event. And like there was things that kind of like, as someone who's never thought about running a Cube event, kind of like you get there and then we start and you do like a speech at the start and everything you're saying does make sense. Like simple things that kind of like everyone leave your pool on the table. The cards do not leave the table. You count them in, you count them out, all that kind of stuff. Like, yeah, like you're using like, we'll get onto the cubes in a sec, but kind of like just these are cubes from the community. The last thing we want is like one, cards going missing, but also just from a time factor point of view, just like cards like ending up in a different table or anything like that. Like we all basically use matte black sleeves, so they can very easily get mixed up and that kind of stuff. And that's just like even if things aren't going missing or there's nothing nefarious, just like just simple things can cause headaches very quickly.
We had one card go missing, and it was just, I think somebody had put it in their sideboard instead of in their deck.
Yeah.
But a big search later, we're like, oh, okay, cool.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like the amount of times we've done my cube where like a shock land has ended up in like the land box and that kind of stuff. It happens all the time. And then obviously when you kind of scale it up to multiple cubes, those things can be multiplied as well.
The amount of times drafting my cube, people have just taken their sideboard home with them and then texted me the next day, Like it gets a bit tricky when it's an actual event.
Yeah,
right?
Hence the counting in, counting out, and in. So the software as well has that as a function. You take a picture of your pool and you upload it. You sort of do the same on the other side. So we're gonna avoid any sneaky sideboards going home to the wrong places. Yeah.
Yeah, the Hedron network does seem like does seem like a very nice. Like, it seems perfect for running a cube event. If I'm honest with you, just
almost like it was custom built.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. But yeah, just keeping it on Cube Clash 1 before we kind of move into some of the changes for Cube Clash 2. Let's talk about some of the cubes. So, like specifically, like sourcing the cube. So I believe so 32 players, but there were 5 cubes for Cube Clash 1.
Yeah. So we had 4 in the main pool, and then we sort of rotated them for the second draft, and then we had the 5th cube for the top 8. So yeah, it was. I mean, two of the 5 were my cubes, so that pretty easy to source. And then the others just came from friends, right? So somebody had a purple cube. We had George's vintage cube, which was always nice to have a vintage cube there. And then another friend gave his very complicated cube. I think that was one of the lessons. It was a beautiful work of art of a cube, but it was technical and it was obscure and it was difficult. I think that was one of the learnings of again setting expectations, because there were, I mean, it's a cube event, people there were invested in Magic, but nonetheless some people found that like pretty difficult and maybe a little miserable to draft.
So was that the Illusions of Grandeur cube?
Yes, yeah.
So yeah, I didn't get a chance to play that one, but that one looked really cool. And kind of like, we have a friend of ours, a friend of the channel, Firetruck Modo, who has a cube called the Blue Nothing Cube, which is an awesome cube, but he said specifically he's never gonna submit it to Cube Clash because like one of the side effects of the cube is that games last like an hour and a half, and that is like the worst thing.
I appreciate him
for an event where we're trying to get 3 cubes in a day in.
Yes, keep that away. That's not for a tournament setting. But it was a big learning for me, that as well. And thankfully now, I was about to say no, tell him to bring it along because things are better now. But with that timing, no, that timing is not appropriate. But one of the beautiful things, the changes you said, and this is as it grows, this gets even better. Is we can have more obscure cubes now. So we're going to have 20 odd cubes. With the software, you can put cubes that you want to avoid. So as long as people engage with the software, right, and if they see the blue do nothing or something similar that they just do not want to avoid it, and then they're fine. There's so many other cubes to play.
No, exactly. Yeah, that's really good. I kind of feel us naturally moving on to Cube Clash 2 here, and in that you started using the Hedron network, just having the ability to rank the cubes that you want to do and the cubes you want to avoid. Like from a player's point of view, is just fantastic. Like for me, as someone who's going into Cube Clash with the goal to play cubes I may never get to play again, like that is a really useful tool. And then also on the flip side, like on the second Cube Clash, I did list some cubes I didn't want to play, but those were ones I did on the first Cube Clash, so I was able to avoid duplicates. So that was a really nice feature that you kind of get from Hedron network. But like, sure. I'm assuming that's something that you must have had good feedback on. I think you kind of mentioned, like, I remember on the day you mentioning that like most players got either their like first or second cube choice.
I think so. And a little request here from me for those of you who are coming to Cube Clash 3 or future events. If you're not really bothered, please don't put rankings, maybe apart from putting those that you do not want to do, because the fewer rankings there are, basically, the more the algorithm can accommodate everyone. So if you genuinely don't mind what you play, you're just there for whatever, please do leave it open. Because some people are after a specific experience. But yeah, I mean, he's done such a good job with the software, and it also just builds the excitement. A week, 2 weeks before, you get to see all these cubes. You get the Cube Cobra profiles, and you can take a look. And if you want to, you can do some practice drafts and all that. And it's just it builds the excitement for the effect, and then you actually end up playing what you want to play.
Yeah, so one of my cubes was featured at Cube Clash 2. Cube Clash is the reason why I actually have a decent overview section now on both my cubes. Because before it was very ropey, but now it's like, people are going to be looking at this. I need to make sure it's presented nice. So yeah, I learned a bit of HTML and syntax for the Cube Clash. So I appreciate that as well.
That's great. I think I just deleted most of the information on mine. I was like, people will figure it out.
Nice, but yeah, but Cube Clash 2 kind of, yeah. So we got larger. We went up to 48 people, but also 13 cubes. So we only added 16 more people, but we kind of over doubled the amount of cubes. Do you want to talk about that? Because in the first Cube Clash, we were resetting cubes between around lunchtime. Was that like quite a big learning point from your end?
I was thinking about this, and I think a lot of the changes came from sort of learnings rather than scaling, is what I thought earlier. So it's not necessarily that things would be too difficult, like scaled up. Like resetting the cubes, it was a little annoying, but it's fine. Obviously, people there at the event would help out, and they did. Thanks to everyone. But
for each cube, there's at least someone who's built a cube before and has shuffled a cube before. So yeah.
But I think that specific change where we added 2 extra pods, but then we didn't run back any cubes. It was a one shot. That, I think, for me is just, again, talking to the beauty of Cube and that it is this grassroots, and everyone's got their own style and everyone's got their own ideas and their own version of what they think is fun in Magic, and it's just trying to showcase as much as possible. Trying to, for a Cube designer, you want people to play your cube, and not everyone gets many opportunities. So it was great to have, give this opportunity to a load of people to have their cubes played by strangers and in this like really positive environment. So definitely it's speaking. And again, Cube Clash 3, we're upping that number again. So it's to get a broader range, broader experiences, and to try and showcase what is beautiful about Cube, which is it's fun, it's silly, it's everything's different, every game's different, every interaction is new and fresh, and you never quite know what's happening. Really. Yeah.
I guess it lets you have a bit more variety and a bit more niche cubes as well, right? Because if you're running them back, more people are going to be drafting each one. So if there's a cube that only is like really narrow and only appeals to a small subsection of the audience, then it's that's probably okay if you're not running it back, right?
James, that's my theory. So we'll see.
Nice.
We'll see how that plays out. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like it definitely feels like it brought out in cube designers like the want to kind of showcase their cubes and showcase what they can do. Kind of like I put the Treat Yourself cube together after Cube Clash 1 because I wanted to do that. It went down mostly well. There was a brief worry where it's meant to be a slower cube, and immediately I find that one of our friends has turned forward Pleasant Kenobi. It's like, that's that wasn't as intended.
Hey, that's what he came for,
Yeah.
Definitely. That's the beauty of it, though, isn't it? With all the intent, this is sort of why I'm like vibe based, because I know whatever I plan or intend isn't going to be what happens. So, I'll set a vibe out there, and people can pick it up and do what they want with it.
No, exactly. And one of the nice thing about Cube Clash 2 is that it also had a charity element. Do you want to talk a little bit about the Newman Holiday Trust?
Yeah. So we had to change venue, and we basically got a good deal with the venue to essentially have it for free as long as all the proceeds went to charity. So Newman Holiday Trust is a wonderful, wonderful organisation. They've been around for a long time, sort of 40, 50 years, and they provide 1 week holidays for children with additional needs. So it's an incredibly intense and enjoyable week. I've volunteered for my first holiday this year, and it was quite special. Intense is the word, but really, really wonderful. It's a bunch of children and a bunch of volunteers. So it's all one-to-one support, 24/7 for the whole week, and for the kids it's all free. And it's they have just the best week full of activities, all these sorts of just everything you can imagine that a young child would want to do. We feel it. We really feel that week full of all these things. And then for the families, a bit of respite, because a lot of the children have various degrees of additional needs and support. So it's beautiful charity that has been going a long time, and they don't have any paid staff. It is just volunteers. And it's a bunch of awesome people giving up a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of love, and really just bringing a beautiful experience to these children. So it was great to be able to put on a Cube event, bring our community together, have an absolutely awesome day, continue with that, whilst also donating money to the Newman Holiday Trust. So we've, for this latest Cube Clash 3, we have just added on the ticketing side an optional donation, and big thank you to everyone who has donated some money towards the Newman Holiday Trust. It's a wonderful organisation. If anybody wants to get involved and wants to volunteer, especially men, because there is a deficit of male volunteers, please reach out to me if you can share my details. But yeah, we're always looking for people. It's a wonderful, wonderful experience for everyone involved.
No, definitely. Like that seems like a really good cause, and the links to that and everything else we talk about today will be down in the show notes. So do make sure you check that out. But yeah, so we've had Cube Clash 1 and we've had Cube Clash 2, both roaring successes. That brings us on to Cube Clash 3. What do people need to know, Josh?
The big change is we're going on the road, as your wonderful intro suggests. So we're going to Birmingham. Cube Clash 3 is in Birmingham. And the reason is we are teamed up with Pauper Nationals. So they're a great group of people who are running, obviously, a Pauper event. We're just sharing the space. It makes sense. We're both grassroots formats. And we decided to put on a big sort of bonanza. So it's not the same event. It's 2 events, but it's one roof. So Birmingham is on the 29th of November, which is a Saturday. It's 25 quid. We're going to have 20 plus cubes. We'll have 3 drafts throughout the day. The venue is Secret Space in Digbeth in Birmingham. Beautiful part of town, lots to do around there. There's food and there's drink available at the venue. And it's going to be the largest cube event to date in the UK. So super excited. Ticket sales have been going very well, but there still some tickets. So yeah, grab them now. And that's the headlines. That's the headlines.
Nice. And then importantly as well, can people, so some people might already be there for Pauper Nationals, but their day might not go as well as they hope. Are people still able to join Cube Clash 3 if they've attended Pauper Nationals and things haven't gone as the plan as they would have liked?
It's going to happen to some of them, I'm afraid, yeah. So I do want to shout out that the Pauper Nationals will also be doing other side events for people who crash out who might want to, go and do that. We're not here to sort of poach each other's players, but yeah, we'll have a reduced on the day ticket that it's not as expensive and you can join basically from draft 2 is the idea. So if that is you, commiserations on your loss. It's probably down to luck. Don't worry about it.
Come the
talk to us
shuffler,
at the desk. Here's the shuffler. Yeah. Where's the shuffler? Yeah, come have a chat and come play Cube, and then you'll never pauper again.
Or you could probably pauper Cube. I'm assuming that's probably going to be an option.
Yeah, you can do it all. Do it all.
If your hate of uncommons and rares extends beyond constructed formats.
100%. Yep. We're going to have playmats for sale as well. Pre-order them if you can. It's helpful. We're going to have, excitingly, pins. We've got these metal pins that are absolutely stunning. So, 2 things. James, I think you're owed a pin, actually. So, we've got normal pins.
I come out several pins, Josh.
I think James is currently still undefeated in the regular season games, should we call them, in the rounds of Cube before the top 8. Yeah.
I will be happy with 1 pin.
Yeah, we're going to retroactively give out 3 pins. So we've got the logo in gold if you've 3-0'd.
No.
And then we've got the normal logo, which we're going to sell on the day. So you can't buy the gold glory. That belongs to James. But so just a little shout out to Nick, who's my collaborator, who has done all the design work. Beautiful, beautiful playmats. The top 8 playmat this time is featuring the Birmingham Bull, and it looks fantastic. And he's designed the pins and the logo and everything else. And I've very vehemently denied him a gold pin because he, very famously on Cube Clash 2, he went 0-12. So, yeah.
Nice. I've definitely found that bragging rights is more important to cubers than any actual prize. Like, if you can lord it over other people that you won the cube, then you have so much more. That is more important than 100%. Any. Yeah.
I got to play Cube Clash 2. We had 1 dropout, so I stepped in, which was lovely. And my head was not in the game, so the first cube I did awful. I went 0-3, which is, it's not a good look on the organizer. But then the second cube I 3-0'd, so I will be sporting my golden badge.
Oh, good. Nice. Yeah, you can definitely tell I was there for vibes. My Cube Clash record is not, but basically, as also our current arena powered cube rankings also show that I am very much the builder of the 2, and James is very much the player. So James will be. I wish you all the luck, James.
Well, I feel like I think the Swiss record can't be maintained, but it's the top 8. If I get to top 8 at any future Cube Clash, I'll be happy.
Awesome. Is the structure still similar to the last one? So for people doing the whole event, it is 2 cubes, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, and then cut to a top 8 afterwards. Is that still the layout for the day?
More or less, slightly better. So because we have the venue for the whole day.
Fantastic. Yes. Mm-hmm. 1
cube in the morning, 2nd cube in the afternoon. There will be a cut to top 8, but everyone else is welcome to stay and draft a 3rd time, and the cubes will be there. cube owners will be there. So it will be, get a pod together, fire at will. Top 8 will be single elimination, and I think this year I'm going to do this time figure. I think the top 8 will have a choice of 3 cubes collectively. Like the top 8 can choose between 3 to draft for that event.
Oh, they can vote. Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll do a little vote there, but definitely there's space and there's time for three drafts for everyone. So everyone's welcome to stay, be merry, and do some silly things. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. In terms of scaling up to that larger size, like I'm assuming this comes with new challenges. Like it sounds like every Cube Clash you've learned something. Kind of like was partnering with UK Pauper Nationals the way that you got to the next step in terms of size of events? Like was that how the larger event came about basically?
Yeah, very much. Yeah. So the big challenge for running a cube event of any size is the venue and the space, because you need a venue that's going to be open, that is available for the whole day. You need specific tables, more or less, and obviously Magic players, when they're playing Magic, they're not spending too much money at the bar or whatnot. So it's balancing all those things. So I definitely was intending to do further events, but probably at a similar scale to Cube Clash 2. So when the UK Pauper Nationals came and talked about partnering, it felt very much like, yeah, this sounds awesome, sounds really fun. Let's do it. So it's been this time there's significantly more financial expenditure from my end to get the venue and software and playmats and and this and that and thankfully, my mum still lives in Birmingham, so I don't have to pay for hotels. But it's been that's been a new element this time. I'm like transparency. I'm not making money off Cube Clash. The second one, the proceeds went to charity. This one, breaking even is the plan, and then if not, well, I'm sure we'll break even, and then I'm basically going to put the money aside for future events, right? So. It's been interesting dealing with slightly larger numbers. Everything else I think is we used the ticket tailor this time, and it's been a really great. It's a bit annoying to pay for that, but the service is good. We'll see on the day. We'll see on the day.
No, exactly, and as you mentioned, people can support Cube Clash because again, it is a grassroots event. So. By being there, you are supporting it, but also buy a playmat as well if you're going. All this helps.
The big thing is come. It's priced that if it sells out, then we're grand. We're good to go. So if you've already got a ticket, get your mate to come along,
No, fantastic. Another challenge I could imagine kind of leads us on to our next thing I want to touch on is sourcing more cubes. How many cubes do we go up to in Cube Clash 2? How many cubes do we go up to in Cube Clash 3?
So I'm still in conversation with a few people, but I don't know. About 20 is the thing. But a lot of people have built cubes. A lot of people want their cubes to be played. It's been lovely having conversations with different people. There's one that we've accepted that is named after this guy's high school teacher. Ran a Magic club back in the day, and this has got him and all his mates playing, and he's named his cube after this teacher, and it's little stories like that are really, really lovely. And watching everyone's, people put so much time and love and care and attention into their cubes. It's lovely to be able to be a part of sharing them. I've not really had a problem, through the social channels and whatnot. I've said if you're interested in running a cube, please get in touch. And we've had a great selection, some really different ones in there. Somebody is beautifully proxied up 100 ornithopters, so awesome. That will be the event. So that's again, there's still some room for cubes, so if you're out there listening, you've got a cube and you think it's a bit spicy especially, get in touch, and if not for this event, then future events. I think that's one of the beautiful things is seeing everyone's different design ideas, and That's not been a problem. There's more cubes than there are cube players.
Yeah, it is the thing. Yeah. I think I currently own 4, I'm going to say. Yeah. 2 we've never drafted because, well, one is arrived this week, and the other one I built during COVID. and I changed the sleeves on the lands and don't have them, so that is. I haven't committed to buying 400 new sleeves yet.
Yes.
Can you give us any like spoilers? Is there anything in particular, kind of like from a design point of view? Like you mentioned 100 ornithopters. Is there anything kind of like you can tease us with in terms of like that kind of like has stood out to you that looks cool to you, or that you want to draft from the ones that you've seen?
Yeah. So we've got the hidden text cube, which is coming, which is that the text is hidden, right? So it's cards from the early 90s that are pretty obscure. You can see, I think, the name of the card, the art, and the casting cost, and what type of card it is. But all the rest of the text is hidden with these sort of inserts to the sleeves. And you get to reveal it when you cast it, right?
Oh no, okay, yeah.
So this is what I mean about some people might not be interested.
That's really silly.
It's very silly.
I love that.
It's very silly.
So you don't know what the text is during deck building.
Yeah.
It's when it goes on the stack for the first time.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Great. Cool.
So if you're looking to spike, maybe leave this one aside.
Well, I think it depends. If you're looking to spike and you have excellent knowledge of 90s Magic cards, I think there's a very big edge there for you.
Yeah, research your Chronicles and your Fallen Empires. That one.
Yeah.
We've got a bar cube coming. So a bar cube is a cube without sleeves, without tokens, without like counters, without shuffling, pretty much. So it's sort of a very casual deck. So there'll be scuffs on some of the cards and all that, but it's bar cubes are played in bars quite often. This time it's going to be played at Cube Clash 3, so it's quite exciting. I'm going to shout this one out because I think there's people out there who will want to play it, but there's also people who will not. So we've got an original Kamigawa rebalanced cube, and when I say rebalanced, it's been errated. So the cards have been changed. Not all of them, but some of them. And the ones that have been changed are marked, so it's very clear which ones are changed. And some of the changes are like power and toughness, some are like casting costs and whatnot. So I've had quite a long conversation with the gentleman about the cube, because I was a bit unsure whether or not, because it's one of my rules here is to try and make things. You set expectations, right? So having freshly designed cards essentially in an event, I wouldn't necessarily recommend. Hence, shouting it out now. So I think it's Kamigawa was a love block, but it had its issues, and I think some people would relish the chance to give that a go.
Yeah, to me that sounds awesome. I could see. Yeah, I like again. That is the point of the ranking thing. You can you can make the event your own. So if that sounds cool to you, you can do that. If I can definitely see how having to learn new cards for the first time on the fly, like for some people that is awful. But I am like my favorite format. Well, it's Cube, but it's also Chaos Draft. Yeah. Like I love that kind of experience of, are we going to have a playable deck? Who really knows? And that won't be the case with that because it is still a cube and it's being constructed, but the element of like, what are we doing? How am I working with this? That does sound quite cool. I'm here for that.
And I think in reality, a lot of the cubes are going to have a bunch of cards that a lot of people won't know, right? And it's not necessarily that different if it's a card that you've seen the name but the text has changed versus a card you've just never seen before, right?
It's a good point.
I mean, they technically do that on Arena. There's cards with the same name and different.
That does really annoy me, to be honest. But yeah, that winds me up every single time. Well, yeah, and it's but the problem on Arena, right, is you just think that you know what all the cards do because it's Arena and they should do it, and then you like cast your Omnath and play a land and it doesn't do what you expected it to do, and it's really irritating. But I feel like if you're going in with the knowledge that that's what the cube was designed to do, it's probably good.
These cards are clearly marked as well. So one final cube I want to shout out is it's called Gravy Babies, and it's my good friend Tom's, and he cubed with me. I got him into Cube, and then basically convinced. He's a game designer. He lectures games, and I got him to build a cube, and he's put a lot of love into it. So it's everything graveyard based, all the different synergies, but it's a really cool take. Standard rules, but you're just looking at your graveyard an awful lot, and it's a real nice to use that as a resource, like the main resource of the game, and it creates some very cool and niche interactions. So yeah,
that sounds very alley. I think that one was at Cube Clash too, but I'm just looking at this like it seems like there's been a bunch of cool upgrades to that. Like I'm looking at the On Wings of Gold. I love as a Magic card.
A lot of work has gone into that one now.
Yeah, no, that looks spectacular. I guess kind of let's keep the ball rolling in terms of like cubes. So for me, one of the best parts about Cube Clash is getting to draft those cubes that is to see different designers' minds at work. One that really stood out to me was the Desert Cube from Cube Clash. I think it's been at both so far, and that was one that you put together. Do you want to talk? It's the Dalston Desert. The desert part means that there's you have to draft your lands. But do you want to talk a little bit about that cube? Because I really enjoyed that was one of the things I wanted to do going into Cube Clash 1 was to draft something completely out of my wheelhouse, and a desert cube isn't something we have in our play group or I've ever really seen before. That was really cool. Do you want to talk about kind of that cube and how you're going to put it together a little bit?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I'm drafting it tomorrow, actually. I've got it right here because there's some updates I want to make. So yeah, that's coming back to Cube Clash 3. It's Dalston Desert. I live in Dalston, hence Dalston. And I heard about desert cubes and just thought that's such a cool idea. And yeah, there's no basic lands, like you said. So the number of lands in the cube itself is obviously far higher than a standard cube, but it just adds those intricacies to the draft picks. So in terms of sort of, there's various ideas about design, and the one that really stands out to me is the idea of a complexity budget. So you don't want to just overload your players with having everything incredibly complex. So that leaves me. I really like clean designs that the card does something very simple, and then the players have to put things together. So in the Dalston Desert, obviously, complexity budget, part of it is used up in people having to navigate drafting the lands. And it's not just, basics. There's a lot of tap lands in there. You've got to draft the lands, but you've got to draft the lands out of the correct colours. So there's a lot of tempo considerations, the synergies amongst the lands and the other cards. There's some creatures. I think I've got Gatekeeper Vine or something similar. This is what I mean about vibe. I'm not entirely sure. But I've got a creature that will search out a land, but if you haven't drafted that specific land, it's not going to do anything. So, aside from that, the sort of the main archetypes are artifact matters and then +1/+1 counters. So it's sort of fairly basic strategies going on, but a lot of complexity, and it's really the pick ordering of your lands makes such a big difference. And it's, do you go lands first? Do you take the bombs first? What do you do? I think one or two things to say about one thing about the Dalston Desert there is that I've not actually been incredibly harsh. So unless you'd have to really sort of train wreck to not have enough lands to play. I mean, you still have to draft them, but there should be enough. I know some deserts are very severe, and they sort of really try and get the feel of being parched in a desert. The second thing I want to say about desert cubes, which I find really, really interesting, is once you've done it a few times, for me, it's a real quick realization that, all drafting could just be this could just be how Magic is. And the idea that we have basic lands obviously makes sense because that's what we do, but it's such a clean design that once you start it, you're like, oh yeah, obviously this could just, it's like you're drafting your creatures, you instance everything else. Why not draft your lands? And I think that's my favourite type of niche design, is when it just feels like it could be like the main design. It's very clean.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point, actually, because I guess the reason most cubes are not like that, right? Most cubes have a basic land box, is because Cube came out of Booster Draft, and logistically it would be annoying for them to have to put enough basics into booster packs for you to draft your basics. But for me, Cube design perspective, I guess there's actually no objective reason why there should be a basic landbox. It's I've yet to have a chance to draft your desert cube, but it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a very cool and very unique experience. So what you were saying about the complexity budget does make a lot of sense. I think it's why things like desert cubes and why like the ornithopter cube is so successful, because it's just changing like one key element. Everyone can kind of get behind that. But if it was like, it's a desert, but also here's 20 intricate dual color archetypes, that might make things a bit more tricky. Keeping it to like three key aspects or like three key strategies was very clever in terms of putting it together, because people already have I have to draft my lands. Oh, now what does Boris do in this cube? What does Simic do? Like, I think keeping it simple works really well.
That design sensibility sort of bled over to my main cube as well, which I've called the Superior Fundamentals cube, but that was a bit of a joke, but it's now just the Superior cube. You can be the judge of that, but I've been stripping away some of the I'm going to say complexity that isn't worth it, and that could be flip cards, or that could be cards that make tokens, just things that like add little additional game elements. A flip card, great, but if you don't know what's on the back when you're drafting it, you're not going to look. I've very rarely seen anyone take a card out, so just little things like that make it a bit more streamlined. And again, I think this word clean comes to mind.
Yeah, I think trying to reduce the number of things you have to explain to a play group before they draft the cube is a really worthwhile goal. I'm in the middle of a moment of oh god, horrendous. Yeah, it's in the middle of putting together a dual commander cube, and I feel like I'm really pushing on that wall of there's a bit too much complexity in the rules, and I think it will be fine for our play group because everyone's down for it, but I think it's definitely pushing up on that edge of I'm telling you like 10 different things about how commander color identity and whatnot before we start drafting, and I think I need to find a way to reduce that down a little bit, No,
100%. Yeah, I just strip, like, I know it's not cube, but just in command, I just don't play like things like the initiative anymore or anything like that, just because it's too, like, Magic has got complicated enough for my boomer brain. I like playing Magic, not being worried about being optimal.
Yes.
I think that when Magic is best, right, is when the cards are simple on the face and you can understand what they do, but then you can use them in a lot of complex and interesting ways. There's been definitely a shift, I think, in the last sort of 10 years of Magic design to the cards on the face are just a lot more complicated, which I guess is partly just because they've kind of made all the simple effects already, right? And they've got to have somewhere else to go for their design space. But it does mean that cubing in general is a much more complicated experience if you're not familiar with all the cards going in, I think.
Actually, just a real quick point on that, I actually quite liked what they've done with energy. So I'm not really a fan of energy, but when the Modern Horizons 3, was it, when they put a load of energy cards in there, I thought it was really cool that they could do essentially a load of fairly simple, clean designs, but it's just using a different resource. So they've almost like created a sidestepped design space where they don't have to go over the top with everything because it's using something that doesn't interact with all the other like resources. I thought that was a really interesting maneuver from them to not just have to ramp it up and have power creep and complexity creep when you could just almost sidestep into a different card type almost. But yeah, I actually don't like energy, but I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah, I think the energy stuff kind of works, but you can only do that so many times, right? You can't just keep introducing new resources. But I think the energy stuff was certainly some of the less egregious parts of Modern Horizons 3.
One of the cubes that I got to draft at the last one that I really liked was the invasion block cube. So this was a cube made up of invasion block, obviously, but just seeing a whole cube of old Magic cards really stirred something in me. It's like I generally find that one of the reasons I love Cube Clash is because I do get like inspired to do things afterwards. So after the first one, I built my Treat Yourself cube, which is like a doing big explosive things. After doing the invasion block cube, I'm now building like a pre-modern old border cube because it makes me feel something. But like you were also in that invasion block cube. That was a really it looked fantastic. It drafted really well. yeah, what did you think of the invasion block cube from Cube 2?
Yeah, it was really fun. So that was from my friend called Eli, actually. So props to him for putting it together. And we had a conversation before. I think the options he gave were: do you want the cube? So we've got two versions of it. So one is a bit more curated, which is actually what we played, and the other was a bit more true to the original invasion block, full of some cards that are like unplayable, basically. So I thought it'd be better for the slightly curated version. And yeah, it came together really well. It's a fairly complex format. I didn't know it going in at all, so I didn't get the same inspiration that you did from it, but I did get that awesome opening the pack and be like, oh, okay. There's a lot to process here and a lot to figure out.
I'll be honest with you, a bunch of the cards I've only ever seen in like a judge's tower, like having to work out what Dead Ringers did. I think I looked at it and I was like, no. And then my opponent played against me and explained what it is. Like, oh, that's quite good. I should have taken that. But
yeah, I had a few similar, like, oh, right, no, I see the power level of this card, which I didn't see when I passed it. But I remember one specific game. I actually can't remember who it was against, but it was I was a bit of a grindy deck, and I had I think 3 different pieces of removal in my hand, and they had 3 very mediocre creatures. It was 3 or 4, whatever. But everything had like a really stupid specific piece of text, like protection from this, and then this did that.
It's very color specific, isn't it? It's like you can only target like a red creature or that kind of stuff.
Just the way it all interacted. I had all this removal, and like none of it did anything. And I think I ended up winning the game, but it was such a puzzle. It was like a real like in a way that you just don't get too much from the newer stuff, because it is all like protection from this color, this and that, and everything's like fairly underpowered in a lot of it. So I don't know. That's my main takeaway from that is that it was just this. I remember sat there like going into the tank, which I don't often do. I think I'm again a bit of a like vibe-based player, so I'm like, oh, this feels right, I'm going to do it, which works out okay. But this was like, oh no, this is super fun. I want to figure out the line, and I got a lot of satisfaction from doing that. So. I also 3-0'd that. That's my 3-0, so that's my gold pin. Yes.
That's your gold. Nice. Yeah. I think everyone was just hoping to open Flame Tunkavu because that seems by far the best card in that block.
Yeah, that card is not reasonable in the context of invasion block, I imagine.
I think there was a deck that was just built around playing and then bouncing and replaying Flame Tunkavu, which seems really strong in a format with, shall we say, like, power crept creatures, I guess is the nice way to describe it. Also,
a deck where you bounce Flame Tunkavu just sounds pretty awesome in any format. Like that's.
Yeah, there's a lot of like messing around with basic land types in that block, as I recall, right? And like all the creatures cared about, like if you have an island, do this, and then like you had ways of changing the land types, and it was all lots of weird on-board tricks, I think. Yeah. So I recall. Good vibes.
No, exactly. And like I think that's a good example of like a different type of cube that you can get at Cube Clash, because like you do see kind of like what people think of as a cube, like you'll see like a powered cube there, as we touched on, like yours is like an unpowered vintage kind of, or unpowered like legacy kind of power level, that kind of thing. But you'll also have like more unique cubes like the desert perhaps. But then you'll also have kind of like theme cubes like the invasion bot cube. There was also like a Lord of the Rings set cube. I think there was also like an Amonkhet like block cube there. And yeah, it's really nice seeing what cube designers are putting together. But because there's that ability to pick the cubes you want, if you want to do like more traditional like powered cubes, you can do that. If you want to do more like weird wacky cubes like a desert, you can do that. If you want to do kind of like more thematic cubes like the Lord of the Rings set cube or the invasion block cube, you can do that. Kind of like everything is kind of catered for, and that's a really nice thing to see. A couple of last questions before we kind of get you out of here, Josh. One thing I did want to ask is, what advice would you give to someone who is looking to run a cube event of any size, really?
Yeah, so I suppose Cube. So if you want to get a play group going, I think the thing is consistency. So pick a day, in the week, same day, same venue, fire the cube. If there's 2 people, fire the cube. If there's 4, fire the cube. And then the trick is, if there's more than 8, also fire the cube. So either have a cube that can accommodate that, or bring 2. But just to get the playgroup going, to get people coming, that regularity, and everyone's going to make it every week. But I think that's really important to start building a bit of just people interested in the format and wanting to come back and re-engage. So definitely get your people around you, do something regular, and just turn up and be there. So that consistency. Beyond that, when you actually, if you want to put on an event, it's the hardest thing I've found, really. Maybe the 2 hardest things is getting a venue and then getting the word out. There are people out there who want to play. There are people out who are going to travel. They're going to come to your cube event. But how do you reach them? I'm not big on socials. I've had to learn how to use Discord. It's an ongoing process. But if what I am good at is talking to people and building communities and building friendship groups and getting the word out. So, I mean, massive shout out and thank you to all my friends who've supported this as well. And I mentioned earlier, Nick has been a big part of it. Jack and Eli brought me back into Cube Clash 2. They sort of brought some fresh energy there. So it's definitely based on those relationships. The same with the venues. The first venue was essentially our local game store that we're going to. Good relationship with them. They support us putting it on. The second one, again, it was through a friend that we accessed this beautiful pub that we got to play in. Third one here, the UK Pauper Nationals have reached out to me, and it's that sort of collaborative effort. So build the relationships, just get talking to the people, really, I think is the big one. And then I suppose also know what you're doing and what your motivation is. So I've stressed here that's grassroots, and it's just fun for me. I like organising. I like bringing people together. I like creating these spaces and these events. And I know my friends like these events, and it's an enjoyable thing for me to do. It's also, in a weird way, this is how I'm interacting with Magic largely these days. I'm sort of not playing Modern anymore, very rarely playing Booster Draft or anything like that. So for me, this is my Magic outlet. If you're looking at it as a business idea, I'm going to tell you to go look elsewhere. But yeah, so be consistent, make those relationships, find a venue, figure that one out, and set the vibe. Fun first. Cube is about coming together, doing silly things, having memorable moments, and yeah, fun first.
No, yeah. I think that's very important. Like from my own experiences, like just organising cube nights and that kind of stuff. It is very much like if you build it, they will come. People want to cube. It's very much it. I find cube is often the hardest of the formats to get into because there's the initial entry point is it's a large amount of cards. You need a large amount of people, that kind of stuff. But once you kind of start it, things do snowball very quickly. Is what I found. People really people don't just cube once, from my experience. People come back for more, and that's one of the best things about the format.
100%, yeah. And there are people out there waiting to cube.
Well, Cube Clash Birmingham is the place to do it.
So I hear.
Last question for you today, Josh. What's in the pipeline for the future? So beyond Cube Clash Birmingham, can we expect another event in London, for example? Or I believe you touched on. You said the word Europe earlier.
Yeah.
You don't have to. I'm not going to hold your. I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire and demand firm plans, because I know these things are complicated. These things take time. But kind of what would you like Cube Clash to be? I think is an easier way of putting it. Kind of what would you like the future to hold for Cube Clash?
Yeah, I don't know what that Europe thing was, but we'll get to that when we get to it. That's the fun thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
London. I'm living here now. There's loads of people here, so for sure. we'll be coming back to London early next year. I don't know how early, and we'll put on a few events in the year. I don't know the scale of the size. If anyone who's listening knows of a venue that's particularly well suited, or at least adequately well suited, hit me up. I'm always interested at new places that we can play. There's some places that we've been scoping and had a few conversations with. So definitely we'll be coming to London. But another thing that I'm pretty keen to do, just need to figure out some of the financial sides, but is to sort of go on the road, but with smaller events. So probably 32, maybe up to 48 players, and travel around the country a bit to some of our beautiful towns and cities and put on events. So I've got a good friend down in Exeter, and he's spoken to his LGS. We've got some players up in Sheffield and whatnot, so it'd be really fun to go on the road with it a bit. So we'll see. If you're somewhere, if you're in London or if you're somewhere else and this is of interest, I know we've got some people in Leicester and Bristol, so feel free to reach out and we'll see what we can do.
No, that's fantastic. Josh, thank you very much for your time today. Honestly, as someone who loves Cube, I am so happy that you have taken this upon yourself to give us an awesome Cube event. So from me and the community, thank you very much.
Yeah, pleasure. And thanks for having me on. It's been great listening to you guys. And it's really, really fun to be here and hanging out with you. And yeah, looking forward to cubing.
Yeah, no, it's been a great time. And yeah, I'll see you very shortly in Birmingham.
For your next top 8.
No, someone has to beat James. He needs to be stopped, okay? I love you, James, but someone needs to stop you. You're a tyrant.
I'll put me in the 90s hidden text cube, and I won't know any of the cards do.
All right, that's going to do it for today. Thank you all very much for listening. Do make sure you give the podcast a 5-star review, tell a friend, all that good stuff. Whatever you do greatly helps us grow and do new cool things. And again, thank you very much to Josh from Cube Clash for joining us today. I thought it was a really good conversation. As a reminder, Cube Clash Birmingham is on the 29th of November at Secret Space in Digbeth, Birmingham. There are still a few tickets available. Links to everything we've talked about today will be down in the show notes below. But until next time, it's goodbye from me and it's goodbye from James, and we'll see you all soon. Goodbye.